Hello and happy Friday, everyone. I hope it's been an awesome week for you all so far and that you're ready to round it out with another great webinar presentation. Um, this, my name is Damien and I work with our manufacturer partners, across all sort of product types, and I will be in the background moderating this week's webinar. Um, I'll say before we get too far in, I'm pretty ecstatic at the response that we've had, related to the release of the lighting module in Land Effects late last year. And, we've continued to have really valuable feedback from designers and manufacturers about the functionality. And to go with that, our manufacturer partners have expressed, really great interest in presenting lighting related webinars for you. So, and despite a number of manufacturers, having been around for quite a while, I certainly feel like the lighting industry or lighting design itself is still on an upward trend in the larger landscape and architecture industries, meaning there's, I think, a lot of growth still to be had in a number of areas. But really, I guess what I'm referring to is, at this point, is smart control technologies. So without saying too much more for him, I want to introduce James Cervantes from FX Luminaire, who's kind of neck deep in the control systems aspect of lighting design and the lighting industry, and he'll clue us in on some smart control technology and how it will eventually grow further into all manners of lighting applications. Before I do hand over to James quickly, let's go over some of those housekeeping items that we just like to remind you of. We love to see questions come through, and I know our presenters are more than happy to hear and answer them as well. So when you do have a question, please type them into the Q&A window, which can be accessed by clicking on the Q&A button on your screens. Don't use the chat. The Q&A button is perfect for that. Some questions will be answered directly by me in the background. Otherwise, we'll have a moment to ask James in maybe the middle of the presentation, and of course we'll have time at the end to answer anything else as well. But yeah, that's all I've got for now. So I will pass it over to James, and he will introduce himself and get us underway. Thanks, James.
Awesome. Thank you, Damien. And also thank you to LandFX for allowing me to present today. So as Damien mentioned, my name is James Cervantes, and I am the product manager for lighting controls at FX Luminaire. A little bit about me. I have been at Hunter for 14 years. This is actually my only job that I've had since leaving college. I love it here. They've given me the opportunity to work in engineering. Then I moved over to contract manufacturing, and now over the past couple of years, I've been in the marketing department doing product management. So a few of the products that I am in charge of would be your standard lighting transformers, drop-in lamps, LED boards, as well as the Luxor system. So as I like to say, basically anything with electronics or firmware or software, then that is going to fall underneath my responsibility. So. However, that is not what we are going to talk about today. We're going to talk about smart control and kind of the impact that it currently has and that it could have in the future when it relates to landscape lighting. Many of us, if not all of us, probably have a smart device either in our phone, in our pocket, on our desk, at our house. It's just become part of everyday life, and you know what? We probably don't even think about it anymore. And whether we like it or not, it is going to become part of the landscape lighting world. The presentation is not going to cover specific products. Really, the point of the presentation is to cover smart control. What is it? What are some of the key words behind it? Take a look at some of the smart control systems on residential side as well as the commercial side, because that's really going to influence us as manufacturers as we start to think about smart controls in the landscape lighting world. And then at the end, hopefully we just tie it all together and kind of get an idea of where we're going to go in the future as it relates to smart control. So Just a quick disclaimer, I am not a smart control guru. I am lucky enough in my position at FX that I do get to deal with smart control and smart homes and those types of products. So I have taken quite a bit of an interest in it. And hopefully this will at least get the juices flowing on your guys' side in order to start thinking about it a little bit. Out of these 4 different bullet points, I would say that the most important would be the first one. Why should we care about smart control? Well, the reason why we should care is because it is relevant. So this chart over here, this is going to show you the type of growth that we have seen in smart devices within a household over the past 5 years. The most important part of this graph is not the numbers itself, but I wanted to take a look at the actual devices that are listed here on the right-hand side. And I'm going to highlight 2 of them. The reason why I highlight those 2 is because we're all probably familiar with those 2 different items. And it is probably a good guess that these items probably were not on this type of survey back in 2015, 2016. And the reason for that is because everybody was still focused on smart homes, the indoor portion. Well, it's become so saturated in there that there's so many manufacturers that they're starting to see that there is some opportunity outside of the house. So what they're starting to see is not only smart home, but smart yard. Obviously, all of us, we deal with the outdoors. We deal with the yard. So every time that we have one of these smart controlled device manufacturers coming to the outdoors, we are missing out on opportunities. And when we miss out on opportunities, we miss out on dollars. I have to say that irrigation has done a really good job making sure that us as manufacturers, we hit this smart yard or this smart control checkbox. However, it's a lot easier as an irrigation manufacturer to kind of develop that themselves. When it comes to lighting, pretty much any manufacturer can become a lighting manufacturer. So even if they're just dedicated to smart home products. And to kind of go along with that, you have these smart control device manufacturers coming to the outdoors. And the last reason why we should care is because this is not landscape lighting. This is just bringing simple products that they're able to connect, similar to what they do in the indoors. So you have Ring, who is primarily focused on security, and they use that sales approach to sell outdoor lighting. You have the same thing with Philips Hue. I personally love Philips Hue. I like what they can do. It's pretty cool. But they're using the sales approach of the type of dynamic lighting that they can use indoor. They want to bring that to the outdoor. So for us, this is kind of devaluing our industry because this is probably just a little bit of a step above those solar lights that you can see in Home Depot. So really, those are the 3 main reasons. Smart is becoming relevant. We're missing out on opportunities, and us as an industry, we know that this is not landscape lighting when we have these manufacturers selling these types of products. All right, so enough of that. Moving into the different elements or the different keywords that are typically associated with smart control. You are bound to hear connected device, IoT device, and cloud. So a connected device is basically just an electronic device with some type of computer inside of it where software is running. Main difference between a connected device and an IoT device is one of them is these connected devices are specific for a particular application. So if the smart device is set to turn on your coffee, turn on your lights, turn on your water, whatever it may be, that device is set specifically for that particular application. Wirelessly connected using common wireless protocols, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Zigbee, Z-Wave, and there is always human action required in order for it to do what you want it to do. When you look at an IoT device, so IoT is short for Internet of Things, and really it's another electronic device. It has a computer, it has software, and it is connected to the internet. These next 3 bullet points is really where it becomes different from a connected device. These IoT devices are always producing data. They're always doing analytics. They're always providing some type of information or habit that is being created by that particular device. Once it's set up, it's pretty much independent of any human interaction when it comes to having to control that particular device. That device is just monitoring and producing the data based off of how you're living your life within your home. And these are what are really used to make a smart home, not connected devices. So a quick example, or a couple quick examples to kind of separate the two. So I have this Samsung smart refrigerator. If it was just a connected device, it would have app control. It would be able to integrate with other smart home products like Alexa. And it could give you notifications on the app. Hey, you're running out of milk. If you compare that to an IoT device version, you would have the app control, you would have integration, you would have notification, but this is where it becomes a little bit more smart. Maybe it would have some type of assistance that says, okay, you are low on milk, let me order the milk for you. Or any types of habits or routines. Okay, I know that you need milk, but I've noticed that every time that you buy milk, you also buy eggs. Should I buy eggs for you as well? So it's that type of extra step that it goes from knowing your habits, knowing the data, in order to make life a little bit easier for you. This one's probably a little bit more relevant and easier to comprehend, I guess, here with this crowd. A connected device would be your Bluetooth tap timer versus HydroWise. So your tap timer here, you're just connecting to it using Bluetooth, and you are interacting with it every single time that you want it to turn on and you want it to turn off. As opposed to HydroWise, where all of the information that you are sending and receiving is coming from the HydroWise cloud. So this controller is sending information up to the cloud, gathering data from different weather stations and making adjustments on the fly. So that's really the difference between a connected device and the IoT devices. When it comes to smart control devices, just real quick on the residential side, you are going to see a lot more smart control devices when it comes to the residence or the house. A lot of lighting, you're going to have bulbs, you're going to have outlets, you're going to have switches. Most of us are probably familiar with the thermostats with Nest, your different electronics, TVs, voice control, microwave, appliances, your stove, your refrigerator, all the way down to toilets and showers and mirrors. Pretty much anything that you can think of in your household, even if you don't think about it day to day, there is probably a smart control device in order for you to interact with it with some type of smartphone app. When you look at the commercial side, you have similar categories, but they're much higher level and the devices are a little bit more complex. The information that these devices are sending out are information so that you can actually make a decision based off of what is happening within this building. So it is gonna cover lighting. It will cover HVAC. It'll cover occupancy sensors, security cameras, security sensors, all the way down to the light shades. And then the last portion here is what everybody refers to as the cloud. So the cloud is basically just a virtual network of servers and databases. It is where all of the information that is being created by these IoT devices, it's being stored in the clouds. It's being managed in the clouds, and it's also being able to distribute that data or that content once it's in there. So each different device has its own, I guess, cloud database or cloud network, and they all work together in order to gather their different types of data that they need. Some of the top cloud platform companies would be Amazon, Microsoft, Google. A little bit higher level would be IBM and Cisco. There are manufacturers that create their own cloud system. That way they can manage it on their own, similar to what HydroWise does. So to kind of wrap that all together, here's really the flow that happens. You have all of your IoT devices. Some of them could be the connected devices. It's gathering all this information. It's sending it up to the cloud, into these databases, into these networks that are being controlled by each manufacturer. And the manufacturer determines what happens with that information. Typically, it'll go to piece of software or an app. As you see this flow in a commercial control system setting, you see here that your IoT devices, they're being used to produce data. A few examples would be lights, your sensors, and HVAC system. One of the most important things to point out here is these IoT devices are typically a single manufacturer. So a lot of these commercial control systems or building management systems are kind of turnkey by these companies. So they want to make sure that you use their devices, obviously their cloud platform, as well as the software in order to control everything. The information that is being sent to the cloud so that it can be managed is typically energy consumption, occupancy, whether it be an individual office room or a meeting room, or just the overall layout of a floor. It can determine the light levels that are being used as well as the comfort levels that are being used. And from there, it can use the software in order to generate reports. And more importantly, it uses all the information in order to make system adjustments based off of your needs and the requirements. So an example here would be on the Lutron side. You can see all of their IoT devices that are here on the left-hand side. Those devices communicate to a hub, which communicates to their cloud, and from the cloud, it communicates to their what they call a Vive system here. It'll generate a report, and then it'll automatically adjust, or what they're calling load shed, in order to accommodate or meet the requirements that are needed for that particular building, in order to meet code, or in order to meet the comfort level and the habits that are being set by the employees that work inside of there. And then they can obviously set schedules based off of those habits and that data. Most important part of this piece of software is that it is a centralized piece of software. And you'll see in the residential side, they really don't have a centralized piece of software. And it's difficult without that centralized control in order to make all these different types of decisions. From the residential control system portion, you have your IoT or your smart devices. Like we mentioned before, in the home, you're going to have a variety of different types of devices, and there's going to be a lot longer list in a residential side than you would have on the commercial side. Most important part here is that you have multiple manufacturers. A lot of the larger manufacturers try to create a product that will accommodate every single type of application that you use inside, but it's really not possible. And most residents that have smart home products it's a combination of a lot of different manufacturers. The information that they send to the cloud would be what is your ideal temperature inside the house throughout the day. It knows exactly when you are arriving from work or arriving throughout the weekend, when you're departing, what time what time you go to bed, as well as your shower temperature or how hot or cold you would like your toilet seat. I mean, it does pretty much everything. And within that cloud, it sends that information to either an app or a system. That way you can interact with that particular device. It determines habits, it sets routines, it'll give you notifications. And one thing that I've learned going to the Consumer Electronics Show every single year is the main focus here is all of these different manufacturers want to be able to take all of this information and make it so that these different products are able to determine your habits and automatically set up a smart home system for yourself. Because right now it's all independent. And one thing that all of these different products do is they all work well with each other. And this goes back to that concept that not one single manufacturer can create a smart device to do all of these different things. But they also know that in order for them to be successful, that they need to be able to communicate with these other products in order for a customer to make their house smart. So I need to know that I can turn off my Philips Hue lights with my Lutron switch. I need to know that my security camera is going to work with Alexa, and I need to know that Alexa is going to work with pretty much everything. And this goes back to not having centralized control. Every single one of these manufacturers' products has a separate app. And it makes it difficult for homeowners to really have a go-to point in order to adjust their system. They can go into each app and set it up so that it works for their lifestyle. But if they were to go make a change and they needed to make a change to multiple products, they would have to go into multiple apps. So one company that is trying to change this is Samsung, and their smart home platform is called Smart Home, and it connects with their SmartThings. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to create a platform so that all of these different manufacturers will use Smart Home in order to gather all that data. That way customers can go just to Smart Home in order to make their house smart and have a centralized location for all of the different types of control. Another way to really tie everything together in a residence when it comes to control is home automation. For those of you that are not familiar with home automation are systems that are created by these different companies, Lutron, Crestron, Control4, Savant, Elan, quite a few, that they have a piece of software that allows you to easily integrate some of their hardware as well as some of these third-party pieces of hardware. It's an easy way to connect everything. That way a homeowner can have one point of control. The problem with that for most people is that it's a little bit more expensive than buying these individual smart products and putting them throughout your house. So what does this have to do with landscape lighting control? So the reason why all of this is important is because we obviously know that smart is important. We know that we're missing out on opportunities if we don't have smart products. And we know that what they're doing is not real landscape lighting. So we need to take a look at both the residential and the commercial side and take parts from both of those. It's going to be a marriage of what residential smart control does as well as commercial. From the residential side, we need to be able to use the idea that it is simple. So simplicity as well as flexibility. We need to make sure that it integrates with a lot of different products. On the commercial side, we need to take the idea that our product needs to be able to provide some type of data, some type of analytics. That way, a bigger type of platform can make decisions based off of what we are doing. And that way it can make the adjustments. So once again, the influence from the residential side would be flexibility and convenience. We have to make sure that whatever product we produce is going to integrate well with many different smart home products. We also need to make sure that it integrates with home automation systems. Not everybody that has smart home products wants to use individual apps. They will have home automation systems. The other thing is that it is difficult to control if you do not have system level control. Obviously, we can have smart landscape lighting devices that are at a device level, but in order to really be able to control an entire system, it's a lot easier to develop something that is at the system level. From the commercial side, we want to make sure that we can produce data, but we also want to make sure that that data is usable. That way we can make system adjustments. In order to make this happen, we need to be able to, at a very minimum level, integrate with some type of complex IoT devices, whether it be motion sensors or occupancy sensors or whatever it may be. We need to also be able to, at a minimum, integrate with some part of a building management system via the cloud. A lot of the reasons why we have these smart control systems on commercial is because of energy. Obviously, there's all types of regulations that are associated with buildings, that are associated with smart cities, and eventually that is going to be a requirement that makes its way down to the residential side as well. So just a few examples here. These first couple examples it's pretty straightforward. There are already products that can do something similar to what I'm going to show here, but to integrate with Alexa. Alexa is something that's probably one of the most common smart devices that are in a household. So you can tell Alexa to turn on your landscape lights. You can also tell Alexa to turn it down to 50%. These next ones are a little bit more far-fetched, but definitely possible. So if I have some type of color system and I have a Ring camera and I'm able to make those two integrate together, I can make it so that there is a routine that anytime there is motion on this Ring camera, it will turn my lights red. So it's kind of a security setting. So we no longer need Ring fixtures in order to have some type of motion security lighting in our backyard or our front yard. This one's a lot more far-fetched. So it would be, once again, you have a color system, and it takes into account this idea that people's habits or people's thoughts are dictated by color temperature of light. So if my Nest thermostat is heating because it's cold outside, I want it to change my color temperature to a warmer white. So that way when I look outside, it gives me the perception that it is warm outside. It can be the same with the cooling. So if it's cooling, then it's obviously hot outside. Then I want you to change my lights to a cooler white. That way I have that perception that it's colder outside. So that's just something really, really far-fetched, but it kind of gives you the idea that if you have a smart platform, if you have a smart control system on the landscape side, then you are able to interact with all of these different types of devices. When it comes to home automation, so typically home automation is controlling indoor line voltage lights or 120 volt lights. They also control outdoor line voltage lights like your porch lights or your garage lights. Being able to integrate with these systems allows you to not only combine line voltage, now you can combine line voltage with low voltage. So for example, in my Lutron system, I can take this keypad and I can program each of these different buttons to not only turn on line voltage lights, but my low voltage lights as well. So if I take the porch light, I can program it to not only turn on my porch light, but I can program it to turn on the down lights that I have installed on the porch as well. For exterior, I can turn on my garage lights, and then I can also turn on my path lights and my up lights. And then on the entry, I can turn on my front door, and then I can also turn on my step lights that lead to that front door. So really, the people that have a home automation system, that have landscape lights, they love the effect of the landscape lights. If there's an app to interact with it, then they most likely will play with that app. But in reality, all they want is to have that ability to go to one spot to turn on all of their lights. And that one spot is their home automation system. On the commercial side, just real quick, you can see here that this is a commercial design. Anything in orange is being controlled by the commercial control system. And then the hope is that they don't put high voltage lights around this property, but put low voltage lights. So low voltage lights are obviously being controlled by a low voltage control system. And if we have the ability to tap in or integrate with this commercial control system, then that'll give us a complete lighting ecosystem. A lot of times, if there is a commercial site or a building that is interested in low voltage lighting, it'll probably be a lot easier sell to make sure that your low voltage system can tie into the overall system, because the people making those choices are probably running that commercial control system from a higher level. So just a few considerations when or as manufacturers when we decide to create some type of smart landscape control product. Number one, which is on the mind of every homeowner as well as commercial buildings, is security. The best approach to this is to hire a third-party company in order to do a security audit. So here we have Security Innovations. What this company will do is they will come in and they will take a look at your code and they will hack through it and try to find any type of area where it is potentially a security risk to get into the network. They'll provide you with a report. That way you can come back and you can fix those areas, and then they'll go back and they'll do that audit again and make sure that it is robust as possible. As far as connectivity, there are a lot of different methods to use wireless connections. You want to make sure that it's a reliable method. Each product, each application is different. So whatever you decide to do, just make sure that it works best for your product. Once again, you want to make sure that it's dynamic. You don't want to just tell the system when lights come on and off. We want to be able to provide some type of data that is going to drive habits, or it's going to drive changes in an overall larger control system. And we want to make sure that we have flexibility. Once again, the main key when it comes to smart homes is the ability to interact with different types of products. So you want to make sure that you have more than just Alexa integration, or you have more than just Ring integration. You need to be part of that entire ecosystem. And finally, the benefits. So the benefits really is that you want to expand your product offering. Anytime that you can expand your product offering, that means that there's a customer group that you're reaching out to, and the more customers you reach out to, the more money you're going to make. It also provides value. A lot of times, well, actually not a lot of times, the landscape lighting industry is saturated. So one way to stand out is that you need to bring something of value to the customer. Once that customer has some type of value with you, they're more likely to use your product and support your brand and everything that they do. And innovation. That's something that's big at Hunter, and I feel that it drives morale, and it drives people to really want to come out with a design that is going to be changing the market, changing the way that we do things as a industry in the landscape lighting world. So where do we go from here? Well, we're going to be where we are right now, and we're just going to try to add some type of smart control. The standing lighting transformer, it's been around for years. It's reliable, and it's still probably the biggest type of power and control option that we have in the landscape lighting side, and it is not going to go anywhere. There are some connected devices out there right now that are bringing some products that are typically used in the indoor to the outdoor. Those are not going to go away either. That's a good option. It's a good option for homeowners that want to have some wireless control and have some wow factor outdoors. And then in the future, if we want to be part of this smart movement, we need to make sure that we have some type of product that is going to accommodate that smart control customer. So I know this was a little bit different type of webinar. I hope that you were able to get some a little bit better idea of how landscape lighting can fit within this smart control segment, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, James. I think it would be actually a little beneficial to talk about just briefly, what the Luxor system that you guys have is capable of doing in relation to, where the market currently sits and, potentially where it's going. I think that's, totally fine to discuss a little bit, and yeah.
Yeah. So, oops, sorry about that. So yeah, I mean, I won't go into the zoning, dimming, and color, but Luxor is kind of our advanced control system. And the most exciting thing about this, and it's good timing and why I'm so excited about smart control, is that we just released Luxor Cloud. So previously we would have local network limitations. Now with that cloud platform, we're able to do a lot more with that system. We're able to integrate with a lot more of the smart home products. Right now we already integrate with some of the home automation systems, but it's going to give us a lot more flexibility in the future to really keep moving forward with this smart home area.
Mm-hmm. And I know you mentioned early on, some indoor product manufacturers like the Philips Hue and so on were kind of creeping out into the outdoor living areas. How do you think, from a, I guess, a business standpoint, are you, like FX Luminaire and other lighting manufacturers, going to kind of combat their strategy, or counter their strategy and their move across to kind of your market, going forward? It's a bit of a tough one, but no, I think your point was right. Just having some randomly colored lights and connected to Alexa or something like that is not necessarily lighting design, or lighting, landscape lighting. So what is kind of the differentiation there in the strategy going forward?
So for me, when a lot of these products come out, I will go buy them and I'll kind of take a look and see how they compare to what we do. So in that respect, it's a lot of education. A lot of these Philips Hue, a lot of the Ring is for DIY, so the homeowners that have the smart home products indoors, and then, hey, oh, I see that they have outdoor lighting. This seems better than solar light, so let's go ahead and do that. Well, before they get to that point, there has to be some type of landscape contractor or lighting architect that has been on that property, and for them to promote lighting. And if they notice that they're very techy, then if you have a smart control system, then that's just another relatable selling point that you can use. But for me, for our sales guys, for contractors, it's more education and the limitations to those products.
Yeah, fair enough. I think from a landscape or architectural project standpoint, when you're looking at smart homes versus, I guess, smart buildings on a larger scale, um, what context do you think has the most potential or would benefit the most from smart control systems at the moment? I know a lot of it comes down to a lot of different factors, but just at a very broad level, what do you think?
From a commercial aspect or a residential aspect?
Well, comparing the two, so which setting might have the most benefit from a smart control system at the moment? I mean, there might not be any difference, but I'm just curious.
So I think from a residential side, like I said in a few of these slides, is the ability to interact with a lot of these devices. At the minimum, you need to be able to interact with I guess you can say the more common or lower cost types of products. On the commercial side, and I don't think any of us manufacturers do this yet or don't do it enough in order to be relevant in the building management space, but to be able to provide some type of information on energy use. So if you have a building that is very energy efficient or needing to meet code, if we have any chance of getting on that job with low voltage lighting, we need to have a system that is able to provide them with some type of information. So I think it's two different things. For both the residential and the commercial side, it's definitely a lot more limited on the commercial side, but maybe a little bit more complex.
Yeah, fair enough. Um, just got a couple of other questions. Got a few lined up actually, but one was, and it actually relates to a thought that I was having, and I'll start with that. I'm actually interested in the potential knowledge that you've drawn from the irrigation counterparts, being Hunter, of course, about control systems. You know, have you been able to draw from those systems and that knowledge, to kind of develop your, I guess, model going forward?
So one thing that I've been able to do is discuss a lot of this with the HydroWise product manager and to kind of get an idea of how our customer base, contractors and architects, how they use the product and what part of that product is actual information that we are gathering from the cloud. And a lot of it, I'm definitely not an irrigation pro, but it seems like a lot of it has to do with sensors, flow meters. So that would probably be the same on the lighting side, that any type of monitoring of a system or any type of uh, adjustment that we can make with the system based off of a sensor or whatever it might be, then that's probably the most important part right now.
Yeah, great. And we had a related question, from Michael. about, are there any plans on tying the FX Luminaire controller with irrigation controllers into a combination unit, or anything like that? That's, I'm sure, a bit more of an IoT device, or something that's maybe a little further down the road, but I don't want to speak on your behalf there.
So I guess there's maybe a couple ways you can take that question. So right now, if you wanted to turn a lighting system into a smart system using HydroWise, then you would just use an adapter that we have called the PX Sync that goes into your standard lighting transformer. You dedicate a station from HydroWise into that. Then there's also the talk of actually creating a irrigation controller that can control landscape lights off of one of the terminals. So that's something that comes up all the time. It's probably it would be a good idea if you are looking to be a contractor that wants to do both irrigation and lighting. That way you just have one platform or one power supply. And then the other, I guess, combination that could happen is now with Luxor, and then you have HydroWise, and then you have another, I think, Centralis on the irrigation side. You kind of have all of these different platforms going, and they're all part of Hunter. So if there's one ecosystem that can be used in the future, maybe that's going to be beneficial for the business and for our customers. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Um, Another question, to integrate with future smart homes and building management systems, do you think that would be more at a smart controller level or a smart fixtures level?
Uh, well, I'm going to say systems level just because that's the product that we have. But what makes it difficult with individual fixtures is that you're having to tie in a lot more landscape lighting devices that are essentially doing the same thing into an overall control system. If you are at the controller level, then all you have to do is tap into the transformer. But if you have a product where you can't get any type of information from that transformer, and you have to tap into the fixtures in order to get intensity or current or wattage or whatever it might be, voltage, then that's probably your best bet. So it's really the point that you need to, whatever product you have, it needs to be able to interact with these smart home products and produce valuable data.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. I guess one thing that, we've sort of talked about, a little off to the side, was people who may or may not be skeptical about smart technology. What would be your recommendations or suggestions to someone who is a little skeptical, about maybe integrating, um, an IoT device that, looks at habits and that sort of stuff, or who might just be starting to incorporate smart devices or connected devices?
So the good thing with that is that when it comes to integration of those devices, typically the contractor, the architect is not the one that's going to be responsible to do that type of integration. Really having a smart product and a smart system is going to be more of a selling tool for them in order for them to relate to a homeowner. If they go to a homeowner's house or they go to a building and they notice that they have one of these home automation systems, well, that's just another selling point to say, hey, my lighting system or my irrigation system is able to connect to this, then that'll be like I said, a selling point for them. Once it gets to that level, if it's a smart home product integration, then that's something that the homeowner can do by going to that particular device that they want to hook it up to. When it comes to home automation, that's something that if a homeowner has a home automation system, then most likely they have a audio-visual integrator that did that, and they will be the one that does that interaction. So once again, it's not something that's going to take over lighting control, but it's just another segment, just like we've seen on the irrigation side, that it's an opportunity there.
Yeah, totally valid points. I'm certainly excited to learn a little bit more and see how things progress from a lighting control standpoint. Not not only just after hearing this presentation, but potentially what we can from Land Effects standpoint can look at developing from a lighting tool standpoint as well. But yeah, I mean, those were all the questions that we had lined up for today. The presentation has been really, really great and incredibly well refined and to the point. So yeah, I mean, if anyone has any further questions, I know there's probably a little more interest on the Luxor specific side of things. Please feel free to contact James. His information is on that slide there, and ask any of those questions, and even feel free to reach out to us if there's anything that from a landscape lighting design tool perspective, we could look at incorporating. We're always happy to hear that feedback and hear those suggestions. So please reach out. And yeah, just in finishing up today, I just want to thank James for his time in preparing this presentation and his time for presenting today. It's been really, really great to hear about this sort of stuff, and again, excited to kind of see and hear where it goes from here. So if you also want to learn a little bit more about landscape and architectural lighting through our webinars, we've had a few in the past, and you can go to landfx.com, click the resources drop-down menu, hit videos, then webinars, and you'll be able to find those guest presentations there. Other than that, I just again want to say thanks to James, and hope everyone has a great weekend.
Oh, thank you too. I appreciate it.